one of the biggest topics of discussion, which is a massive college cheating scandal, college admissions cheating scandal, and it reaches pretty broad reaching. It's the biggest one in American history.
Yeah.
To an FBI probe. So I put it on my Instagram. I put it on our Instagram, actually, on your leisure page to see, the reaction, if we should talk about it or not. And a lot of people wanted us to talk about it. And a lot of people really wasn't sure exactly the full dynamics of it.
What
as
happened
far as
here?
like what it really encountered and, all of that stuff. So with that being said, we want to jump into it and explain it in full.
Yeah.
Because it's more involved than what people think.
Yeah, a lot of people completely oblivious to what happened. They saw it on the news and the headlines, but there's so many layers to it. And hopefully we'll be able to explain that to you in a way that you can understand and digest.
All right. So you want to start it off?
Yeah, so we'll start with by the FBI finding this out by mistake, completely by mistake. It was just a happenstance. They were investigating this man named Maury Tobin, who was a Yale alum. And he was under investigation for a pump and dump scheme. So a pump and dump is when you put money into a stock and the stock rises and you sell it because you know that the stock's not going to last long. So he was under investigation. They had all the evidence presented for him. And when they presented it with him, he was like, you know what? I'll cooperate, you guys. If you give me leniency, I'll cooperate. So what he does is say, you know what? I'm a Yale alum. My daughter wants to go to Yale and play soccer. The coach there, Rudy Meredith, offered me to have my daughter come to the school for $450,000. So he says, you know what? If you pay $450,000, your daughter could come to the school. FBI says, okay, that's really good. Can you get that on tape? So what Tobin does is he wears a wire and he goes to have the meeting with Meredith and he has him on tape saying it. Now, once Meredith is caught, he says, you know what? I'll cooperate if you give me leniency. I'll tell you where this money is going. And it comes up to this man named Rick Singer. And if you don't know who Rick Singer is, we're going to go into some depth about who he is and his role in this story. But what he does is he starts singing, ironically enough. So you want to talk about who Rick Singer is a little bit?
Yeah, so Rick Singer is a guy. He started a company called The Key, right? And The Key was a company that designed to have affluent parents pay to get their kids into college, right? And it's a couple different ways how he went about doing it, but they were all pretty much illegal ways. Yeah. So The Key, it's all unfolded because of Lori Loughlin.
Well, Lori Loughlin, yeah. So Aunt
Lori
Becky
Loughlin,
from Full House.
So she's Aunt Becky from Full House.
Yeah.
Full House. That brings back memories. That's a legendary show.
Uncle Jesse's wife.
Yeah, Full House. It's crazy. So, all right. So now you have Aunt Becky from Full House, right? And when he got put the pressure on as far as Rick Singer, he starts to fold.
Yeah.
So it's like a domino effect, right? One guy rats, another guy rats. So now he says, okay, well, I'll open it up for you, right? This is bigger than just me.
Yeah.
So now you have all these Hollywood A-list celebrities, B-list celebrities that are paying up to $500,000. In some cases, I heard even $1.5 million to get their kids into college, right? Yeah. So how they're getting their kids into college is the interesting part. Because a lot of times people say, okay, well, rich people paying to get their kids into school, that's nothing new.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
Who really cares? But this is how it all breaks down, because the theme of this show is like the backstory behind sports and entertainment, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to give you the backstory behind sports and entertainment. So this all ties in. It's a very complicated situation. So they're really using two avenues to get the kids into college, right? So they're using learning disabilities, right? Because now if you have a learning disability, when you take your SAT or ACT, you get longer time to take the test, right?
So that comes from him first paying school psychologists. So first thing he gets on the payroll, school psychologists. In the two ways that they do it. First one is ACT, SAT test. So he gets school psychologists because he knows that they can create the paperwork that he needs to show that the kids have learning disabilities. So when they get that paperwork, it'll allow them to have extended time. So that's in a testing accommodation, either time and a half or double time. Once they get that, now the kids have longer times to take the SAT. But it goes even deeper because after they take the test, right, sometimes he has another person on the payroll, the proctor of the test. So they take the test, and a lot of times the kids didn't know this, but the proctor was like some guy that they hired, like a SAT genius, and he would just change the answers for the students so that they would get higher scores. He went even further than that, though, right? This is like one of the illest things he did. we know like when we take the ACT and SET, like way back when, that those tests were at specific locations. So what he did is he knew that the parents had a lot of money, and he said, I need a different type of testing accommodation. I need the students to create a scenario where they have to leave. So parents would say, look, I'm going on a business trip. I have to take my children. Is there any way that they can take this in a different location? And they went to two places. They went to Houston and they went to West Hollywood. And when they got there, obviously it was the proctor was on the payroll, but sometimes they had people just go into those locations and take it for them. So like some kids never took the test. Some took it and answers were changed. And it's like, wait, what? How did this happen?
Yeah. So that's the academic side.
Right.
And now we're talking about the athletic side, right? So it's actually fitting that you spoke about the academic side because you work in school.
Right.
You're an educator, right? And I played sports my whole life. So now I'll talk about the academic side. So as a former Division I athlete, I can speak about this firsthand.
Yeah.
So when you are recruited to go to school, now each college has academic requirements, right? Now the academic requirements, most of the time, they have leniency for athletics, for athletes, right? So it's lower for an athlete to get it. The academic requirements are lower, right? Because they're an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that you have big time college sports, basketball, football, everybody knows that, right? But there's a lot of college sports where we actually spoke about a few episodes ago, and nobody really knows most of those sports, right? So you have teams like water polo, sailing, even soccer in some cases, squash. Nobody knows, no disrespect to these teams, but nobody knows the players, and it's no big deal, right? So what happens is that the players on these teams, they have a way to get into college with lower SAT scores, lower ACT scores, lower, academic requirements. So what they were doing is that now they were paying off the coaches, right? They paid the college coaches to put the kids on the team so they can get in on that avenue as well.
Right.
So now the kid is on the squash team and he's never even played squash.
Probably doesn't even know what it is.
Nobody. So a couple of schools USC was one of the schools, right? So USC, if a running back doesn't show up to practice, everybody's going to know that the running back, like that's,
pretty obvious.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Nobody's checking to see if the rowing team shows up to practice or not, right? So now and they was actually even photoshopping kids' faces on pictures to make them seem like they were actually real athletes, right? Yeah. So how does this all tie in? And so there's always a plot twist, right? So how does this all tie into everyday people? Is because as we spoke about before, there's two sports that really fund the majority of every sport, all the sports in college, right? And those two sports are basketball and football, right? So now you have basketball and football, and we all know the demographics most of the time of those sports, right?
Right.
And those kids most of the time aren't coming from very affluent families. Some do, but most don't, right? Middle class, low class, poor families. So now you have those two programs are funding the other programs like water polo, squash, sailing, all those teams, right? So now the funds that they're getting, and it's helping them run their programs, the wealthy parents are paying those coaches to let their kids on the team, even though those kids aren't actually on the team, just to get into college. Right? So it all ties into the idea of America and the weird combination of sports and education. It's not normal to have sports and education tied together in any part of the world other than America, right? So part of the cheating scandal also was IMG Academy in Florida.
You know that school.
Yes. So I am alumni of IMG Academy. So if anybody's not familiar, I'll give you the quick rundown. IMG Academy is one of the top prep schools in America, if not the top prep school in America. And they have a different approach, whereas they build the academics around the sports, right? So sports is your main focus. You go to school for whatever sport you're playing. And then they kind of tailor make your academic requirements around your sport. So you train for most of the day and then you go to school for like part-time almost, right? Yeah. So it's a unique situation. So they had the head of academic enrollment for colleges, something. He had a title, something like that. Long story short, he was taking tests for kids to get them into college, right? At IMG. So now it all comes down to, this is $1 billion business, as we said before, the NCAA and college sports, right? So now college sports is all being tied in with wealthy parents paying for their kids to go to college, and they're using it on the back of athletics to get their kids in via $100,000, $500,000, $700,000 that's going to coaches. So now everybody's getting paid in this whole situation. Except for the athletes that's making all this possible.
Yeah, the tennis coach at Texas, right, University of Texas, $90,000. He's a tennis coach. You got $90,000 for a kid to get into the school. Who's ever watched a tennis match from Texas? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So it's a very complicated.
Yeah, it reeks of elitism and privilege. But the question like that I had was the why. Why are they even doing this, right? Because if you think about it, when you have families who come from affluent neighborhoods and they come from wealth, the college is kind of not even a necessity, right? Your family has already accumulated wealth. Going to college won't guarantee that you'll accumulate any more wealth, right? If you have $500,000 to pay the coach, then why are you going to college, right? Or you could be learning a skill doing something else. Whereas every time a kid like that gets in, you have a kid who's busted their tail throughout their entire scholastic career to have the opportunity, and now they don't. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when a middle class or people from low socioeconomic environments, when they go to college, it's like that's our ticket to middle class. Like we have to go to college because it'll give us a good job and we can live a middle class, quote unquote, life. And it's like, all right, well, college is the key. Well, you already have that. So like what's the why is like kind of puzzling to me.
And also, I mean, we talked about basketball and football funding these programs, but what about the kids that's actually trying to get into college via squash or rowing? Like it's taking a spot from another kid to get in because you got a kid on the team that's not even on the team.
Yeah, they didn't release the kids' names, but like one of the students at USC, when he went to the admissions office, they were like, "Oh," they looked at his transcript and said, you run track," and he was like, "What? I don't know what you're talking about." So sometimes the kids didn't know. In fact, in Wake Forest, one of the students who's in the investigation, they allowed her to stay at the school because they found no evidence that she knew that her parents had paid for her to be there. So it's like crazy because like, what do you do? How do you reverse that? Because Singer's been doing it for 25 years. He has 800 clients. He's made $25 million off of this scheme. Do you revoke those degrees to the kids who got paid? Right? Yeah. How do you do it?
And this is something, like I said, that the average person isn't even thinking about, right? And it just shows you the disparity in this country, in the world too, but especially in this country between the haves and the have-nots, right? This is something that, the average middle class, poor family, they're not even thinking about anything. They're not even aware of this stuff, right? Yeah. So the extent that people will go to have their kids succeed, or sometimes, like you said, just to even be a status symbol,
right?
It's obvious that it's not a fair playing field.
Yeah, like that's like what you said, the status symbol. Like my kid is in Yale, or my kid went to Harvard, or he got into USC. It's like, really? Like there's kids who are really actually trying to get that done. We actually had a case in Ohio in 2011. This woman named Kelly Williams Bowler, and she came back up in the news because of this scandal where she was facing 5 years in prison because of an address fraud. She lived in a part of Ohio where, poor neighborhood, and she wanted her daughters to have a better life or a better education. So she used her father's address, which was in an affluent white neighborhood. And the school district brought her up on charges for fraud. She was facing 5 years in prison just because she just thought, hey, a zoning issue. All right, I want to give my kids the best education. Now, she didn't go to prison for 5 years. I think she did 10 days, but even 10 days, like, let's see how many of these parents actually go to jail.
Well, we'll see.